What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and we've got some news coming out of EA, including I have obtained the internal email sent by CEO Andrew Wilson talking about and admitting to the failure of Anthem, as well as the failure of how EA releases games in general. Now, there's a lot to cover here, but I will try to be brief. PC Gamer originally published an article yesterday saying EA says the old way of releasing games doesn't work. I'm going to cover that first. The Anthem experience has apparently led EA to reconsider how it launches large-scale online games. Now, maybe I'm not a big smart guy who, is credited for inventing a predatory loot box, but I would recommend releasing games that work. I'm just a simple man in a basement who collects video game stuff. I'm just a normie. I'm not a big, powerful game CEO, but I would start by releasing games that are functional, that deliver what you promised, and maybe go from there. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. EA acknowledged during its Q4 2019 financial results conference call that Anthem, which is expected to be one of the biggest releases of the year, did not live up to expectations. Despite all of its problems, it still was one of the biggest releases of the year. Despite all of its problems, EA reaffirmed support for both the game and developer Bioware. It also said that experience has led to realize that it needs to start handling large live service game releases differently than it has in the past. Now, I am not a fan of live service games at all, because so few people do them correctly. There is the pile of absolute garbage is exceedingly high compared to other games. But the idea is the reason these games are not going anywhere is because these companies are rock hard thinking about, infinite revenue, a game generating revenue for many years. The reality is, it's not just an EA challenge, it's an industry-wide challenge, Andrew Wilson said during the call, referencing the difficulties of creating and operating a large-scale open-world game like Anthem. You're moving from what was initially a Bioware game, which would have been somewhere between 40 and 80 hours of offline play, to 40 and 80 hours of offline play plus 100 or 200 or 3 hours of Elder game that happens with millions of players at scale. Elder game? No. That obviously has an impact on development and QA process. Well, why don't you do this? This is what Rockstar does, right? You release a very good game that is standalone good with all this offline play, and then take that money, instead of trying to get all of the money up front, you take that money and then you develop the additional services. Maybe that would please your customers. Obviously it has an impact. But EA also examining how it presents new games to potential audiences. Oh, it's a marketing issue. Oh, okay, my bad. Well, that fixes everything. With an eye toward managing expectations. Well, EA, I can't imagine people's expectations being lower for a game coming out of your building, but I guess you must lower the bar even further. Andrew Wilson said that in Asia, major online games generally go through a soft launch and multiple community tests before everything goes live, which enables EA to get a better idea of how they'll behave at scale. In the West, however, major publishers have stuck with the older conventions of a drip-feed approach to marketing to build an appetite and excitement for the game that leads straight into release. As games have gotten bigger, that system isn't working for us so well as it has in years gone by. So what you would expect from us is not just about changing development process in the game, but it's about changing the QA process in the game. Although both of those things are being changed dramatically inside of our organization right now, but what it comes down to is changing how we launch games. So they're going to go with basically what it sounds like he's alluding to is what the Chinese mobile market does. He is saying, look, our games aren't the problem. It's people's expectations. It's marketing. It's not that Anthem launched in a absolute terrible state. It's not that Anthem didn't have plenty of information, by the way. You had your VIP alpha, you had pre-alpha, you had betas, you had all sorts of options to opportunities to understand how the game would work. And you failed to make any reasonable changes. You still haven't fixed the loot, the number one problem that people have with the game, and it's been months. you should expect that we start to test things like soft launches, the same things you see in the mobile space right now. Oh, yeah, see, exactly. As well as it comes down to changing how we communicate with our players, our entire marketing organization is now moving out of the presentation mode and going into conversation mode and changing how we interact with our players over time. You know, another way you could describe this? What's that saying? A frog doesn't know it's getting cooked if you increase, you slowly increase the temperature to boil. That's what they're talking about. Just so everyone's clear. They're talking about slowly turning up the heat on customers so that they can fleece them without anyone knowing. They're giving out too much information up front. That's what it sounds like to me. Wilson believes the change in approach will help ensure that games run better and more reliably when they go fully live. Okay, so what we're talking about there is an extension of what we already see. By the way, you can see Anthem is 50% off on the right sidebar. What we already see where games really never leave beta. Games are releasing at best in a beta form from these AAA companies and taking months or even years to reach a state in which anyone in the right mind would call polished or completed. But the problem is they're taking 100% of the money up front, including monthly subscriptions in some case. We help players understand exactly what it is they're going to be playing and how they're going to be playing on the day of the launch and over time. We think we're in a really good position for this. I think, well, yeah, because you have a huge network of influencers who will do your bidding for you. I'm going to talk about now the internal memo, which I can't show, but I will read verbatim in cases. So this is from Andrew Wilson to EA employees. It was our last year of fast-moving. It was a year of fast-moving transformation in our industry. Through that, we saw the power of great games can deeply engage players and build worldwide communities. Our EA Sports team delivered a portfolio of high-quality, innovative experiences that our fans love, including 45 million players in our FIFA HD game alone. We surprised the world with Apex Legends, which quickly became our fastest growing new game ever. I doubt that's still true. We also had our strongest year yet of engagement in our Sims 4 community, an incredible achievement. Okay, so all great things. Sports games need to go the way of the dodo, in my opinion, unless, the NFL and the NBA have to give other people a license because these games are... Look, I bought the show because I really like baseball, but even this game... It's like buying cars, micro updates every year, and for a full $60 price tag, not to mention more and more gambling add-ins for the addicted crowd. Now, we also took risks, he goes on to say. Now, learning from those decisions are helping to inform our path forward. In a world of changing player behaviors and expectations, the path to innovation is not always linear. Anthem has always been an ambitious game, and Bioware team delivered a beautiful world with some amazing gameplay. No, they didn't. We've also encountered issues with the game that began to manifest as it reached scale with players. The loot system has nothing to do with the number of players that are connected to the game. Now, you could talk about how your server crashed nonstop, and that might have something to do with the scale of players, but most of player complaints are not around that. I mean, load screens, those are a problem in the pre-alpha, so I don't know if I would even give you credit for that either. These were built-in code issues. These are frostbite issues. As we now focus on making improvements, well, now that you got everybody's money, our learnings are not just for Anthem. We also are making adjustments to how we launch large-scale new experience in the future. Taking creative risks will always be part of our process, so we will be learning to ensure we can continue to grow. We are entering a dynamic period of gaming. These are exciting times as innovation is moving forward. New entrants are joining the market, and there's more disruption to come. We've got a lot ahead in fiscal year 2020, blah, 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 blah. So, he was more earnest, I think, with the actual investors than he was with his own employees, going on to talk about, EA predicted the game would sell as many as 6 million units during its launch quarter. During its first quarter, I'm assuming they meant, they wanted, 10 million, 12 million total copies sold? Bioware's new IP Anthem launched in February, and despite strong sales start in the United States, it failed to meet EA's expectations. As part of EA's latest earnings calls, Andrew Wilson said the launch of Anthem did not meet our expectations. Back in February, just ahead of the game's release, EA CFO Blake Jorgensen said the publisher expected the game to sell between 5 and 6 million units by the end of March. He said even more money was expected to come in from the sales of Anthem's microtransaction opportunities. Today, EA did not provide any specifics about how many units Anthem has sold, and that's another issue. I've got a different topic I really want to cover when I get time to, is that this shift to digital has been, in every way, in my opinion, anti-consumer. I don't see any real benefits to digital-only games, and tracking sales numbers are just another thing that we as customers lose. We're only going to hear about game sales when it's like a record-setting number of sales or everybody's really excited about the number. You're not going to hear about the failures, and there's no real way to track it if you don't have any retail physical copies, although it gets more difficult because I'm sure physical copy sales are still reported by the industry. But again, we're losing all of our transparency. Wilson said that Bioware is aware of the feedback from Anthem players that they want more depth and variety of mission modes in game. What about the loot? What about the loot? The team is now very focused on continued improvements of the game. I don't understand how you think that. I mean, I think what they're looking at is they have their player base. They have the people that have stuck around since launch, and they have to hyper monetize them, which is why they're not getting loot. Those that are playing Anthem are playing a lot. Together, we have logged more than 150 million hours in the game since launch. Just last week, Anthem developers said they remain 100% committed to Anthem following the delay in numerous anticipated features. One part of Bioware's commitment to improving Anthem through the launch of a new player feedback system. Well, here's my concern about the player feedback system, and we're going to wrap it up there. Your players could not have been more loud about their issues with the game, and you continue to ignore them. So giving them a new system to yell into the void isn't exactly a good move, I don't think. It's not one to be applauded. But again, this is just another AAA industry game that is trying to instead dictate what the market wants rather than listen to it. The idea that they're going to adopt the Chinese mobile market and try to boil the frog slow is frightening, because I just know how many people that are in the know that aren't in the know that are just gonna, this is just gonna work. This is gonna work on them. I do hope that if you enjoyed this video that you'll take a moment to drop a like on it and leave a comment down below, because it definitely helps new people find the channel. I really appreciate you watching, and we'll talk to you again real soon.